the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you
Alrighty,
can do
Taylor,
for
we
your
are
country.
back, and it should be Wednesday on the day that this is going out. Welcome back. Hopefully, your groceries are here, or soon to be here.
They are.
I thought, why don't we mix it up, and why don't you introduce us today?
Oh God, damn spot. Sure. Hi everyone. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. We are a podcast that talks about history's greatest failures and disasters and things that went wrong. And we cover everything from natural disasters, engineering disasters, true crime disasters, anything you can think of. That's what we're going to talk about. And today, Fars is going to kick us off and tell us a fun story.
I am gonna go back to true crime.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go to a story that I don't think anybody's gonna know the name of. Like when I tell you the name of the person I'm covering, I don't think you're gonna recognize it, but I think a lot of people have heard of this case. But it's interesting because this case actually was relatively recently resolved, despite the fact that it was kind of in the media all over the place in 2010-ish, 11, somewhere around
Well,
there. And so the first time I heard about the person I'm talking about here was I used to be obsessed with the MSNBC show Lockup. Have you ever seen that?
no, but I imagine it's about prison.
Yeah, it is. They go into different kinds of prisons, they interview people and talk to people and so on and so forth. And so at the time, I never heard about this story. Oh, I didn't know about this story. And then they interviewed this one guy on death row, and he was just like chubby, jovial, Elvis Presley haircut looking guy. Like he was just like I don't know, it was weird. It was just like he just didn't seem like the kind of person that would be on death row. And it was a weird situation. I researched the guy then.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some Dateline stuff that came out about him. And I circled back to it today. I forgot how I even thought of this guy again, but I was just like, yeah, people haven't heard this story in a while. Might as well cover. I'm going to cover this guy. His name is Daniel Wozniak. Taylor, you probably don't know that name, do you?
I don't know. I don't think so. Wozniak sounds familiar. Can I tell you that I got a really weird email from our sheriff, and my husband and I both were like, "Did you get that email?" It was like an email the sheriff sent to everybody in the county, and it was like, "I'm concerned about the death row inmates escaping, essentially." And then he was like, "Just like in 1980, when this one guy escaped and then ended up killing four people with an ice pick." And I was like, "Why are you emailing me this? What is happening?" It
Was
was
it
like
really
really
from
weird.
the sheriff?
Yes. And like it was so weird. I like brought it up to my husband and he was like, I know, I read that. It was like 17 paragraphs. There was no ask at the end. There were no buttons to click. It was just like this weird story about death row inmates potentially escaping. And I was like,
You live
what is
nowhere
happening?
near San Quentin.
I don't even know. It was really weird.
Yeah,
It came this
he
week and it
must
was
have
strange.
been having a moment or something.
Yeah, I don't think anyone proofread that or like double checked the Haitians on that.
Well, you might have thought that the name Wozniak is familiar because I mean Steve Wozniak is the co-founder of Apple,
Oh,
but
that's
that's not this
why.
guy. Yeah.
I'm dumb.
This is
Yes.
not that. This is that this is like the furthest
All
thing from
right.
Steve Wozniak. This case was really interesting to me because it was like, again, his personality is so weird because you're like he's such a jovial, sociable, cool, kind looking dude, and then you realize what he did, and you're like, oh, he's crazy evil, but he's also super dumb. And the reasons why he did what he did is like really stupid, which is that was my seat moving in case somebody's wondering if I'm tooting on the podcast. But for some reason, that combination of being like really sinister but also like dumb is kind of scarier to me than like someone who's deliberately sinister and can get away with things. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost like, man, that's like really a shame. Like you could have, like, if people think about like Charles Manson as like this evil guy who like controls like people, it's like, no, he's just a crazy hippie. Like he was just a crazy dude.
Yeah.
They're not that well thought out people. But that's the kind of guy that I'm going to cover today. Daniel Wozniak, very weird case, and it all happens in a really condensed period of time. So it'll be kind of a quick one for folks. So Daniel was accused of killing two people in a really horrible way and for a really awful reason. And it is just one of those situations where if you start thinking about the psychology of this guy, you're gonna start going down some weird rabbit holes. But let's start out with kind of where this thing kicks off. So Daniel is basically in our age group. So as of right now, he like literally just turned 40 years old.
Hmm.
He grew up in California, and from an early age, he was super interested in acting in the theater. And so that's basically what he did as his hobbies growing up was take part in plays and local theater shows. Eventually, he would attend a community college in Orange County and also be very active in the local theater scene. And it was at this time that he would also meet a woman named Rachel May Moffat, who they would start dating and eventually moved in together and got engaged. By all accounts, he had no job. Like, I have no idea how he paid for anything except for credit cards. It sounds like he
Hmm.
was in a huge amount of debt, and that was causing a lot of problems. Obviously, he was like on his way to getting evicted from his home, and for some reason, him and Rachel had also planned out like an incredibly elaborate wedding and a honeymoon. So this guy's back was pretty much pressed up against the wall. And a part of me was thinking to myself, okay, so this time you're 26 years old, you're living in Southern California, acting is your passion, you found the person you want to be with, and I mean, I'm not trying to justify it, but I'm trying to think of like if somebody came to you and said, well, like you got to go make sandwiches at Subway, like you'd be like, I'm so close to like achieving my dreams and things. Anyways, I was trying to like figure out like why he would do what he would do other than just
Hmm.
getting a normal job. And I think it's something about like he probably thought he'd get away with it, and he was really close to actually making it big as an actor. I don't know exactly, but I don't know. My general perception of it is that like if you're at this age and things aren't coming together for you, then I don't know, maybe just give up and move on to something else. Like you're 26 and
Yeah.
maybe it's time, or just break up with or just tell your girlfriend you're not gonna get married. Like, so,
Yeah. Like, I don't know. People who spend so much money on that stuff, like, if you can't afford it, don't do it.
yeah,
Is that part of the thing that's gonna instigate him to do something bad?
yes, yes. So Daniel and his fiancee Rachel, they lived in an apartment complex, and there was another person that lived there they were really well acquainted with, and that's where we're gonna get into our victim. So this victim, his name is Sam Herr. Sam was a 26-year-old veteran who had just returned back home after spending some time in combat in Afghanistan. And apparently he wasn't like he wasn't like turning radio dials in Afghanistan. Like he was apparently one of the guys that had to like run into like enemy fire to like secure positions for people behind
Well,
him. He was an intense dude. Um and Sam and Daniel, they were friendly. They were friendly enough to where at some point Sam tells Daniel that he'd saved up somewhere around $60,000 of combat pay, which happened in that one case I covered. Oh God, I can't remember her name. The woman that's on death row in Florida, where somebody just casually mentioned they had like 100 grand in the
yeah,
bank. It's like just
Tiffany.
Tiffany, Tiffany
Yeah.
Cole. Just
Yeah.
never tell people your financial situation. Like
Especially like I don't know if this guy had cash, and I don't think those people didn't have cash either, but they thought that they did. Because remember, in part of the thing that we talked about was how stupid the criminals were, because they were like, "Let's go rob them of the money they made from selling their house." And you're like, if you sell your house and you make $200,000, they don't give you $200,000 in tens, you know? Like,
it's actually it's actually a bag with a dollar sign on it.
like they just like toss it at you, and you have to carry it out. Like, what are you thinking? That makes no sense. So yeah.
Which comes into play here actually. So by all accounts, I'm specifically referencing like a Dateline episode involving this guy named Chris Williams that was a friend of the couple, but mostly it seems like both of them, but primarily Daniel was probably always doing illegal shit. So like that's the only way he knew how to make ends meet. Like he wouldn't get a job, he wouldn't
Right.
ask for help. Somehow they would pay things, and nobody really knew how they had the money to do that.
Right. So it
So
must have been suspicious.
yeah, he talked about how he was over at their house once and Daniel owed him money, and he said that he went out for a few hours. Daniel said he's going to go get the money that he owed him. He went out for a few hours and he came back and he was like out of breath and had a crazed look in his eyes, and he was like there was something weird going on. I don't know how he got this money, but I doubt he just like went and pulled it out of
Yeah.
his own bank account.
Yeah.
On May 21st, 2010, Daniel asked Sam to help him move some equipment at the local theater, which was closed, but that Daniel had access to. They went up to the attic, and as Sam had his back to Daniel, Daniel shot him twice in the back of the head.
Oh my God.
Apparently, the first time he shot him, it didn't kill him. And Sam said something like, "Hey, like something just hit me, like help." Like he was asking for help, and he just shot him again in the back of the head.
Ugh, yeah, I bet. I mean, I bet that was confusing as like really fucking confusing 30 seconds or 2 seconds for Sam.
Can you imagine you come back from Afghanistan, you're advancing
Ugh.
position for the military, you're being sniped, and you get shot in the head in the attic of a local theater? Like it's wild. It's wild.
So unfair.
Very unfair. It
Yeah.
reminds me of that Chris Kyle guy who was like trying to help out. He was like a sniper or a marine sniper or something, and he was
Yeah.
trying to help out that one veteran, and the guy just shot him. It was like, seriously, like you went through like 3 years of Fallujah and you just got
And that's how
shot in
you
the back of the
die.
head by your truck in Texas. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. That was terrible.
So Daniel, this story is so crazy. Daniel leaves the body in the attic of this theater, and then he goes to a different theater because that night, him and his fiance are set to perform a show called Nine, which I've never heard of, but apparently it's got a lot of awards.
I saw Nine with Antonio Banderas on Broadway.
That is very cool. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's pretty popular.
Yeah. I mean, it was like maybe 20 years ago, but I was very excited to see it. My friend had tickets and it was cool.
But can you imagine like you're going to go act in a like you just shot someone in the head? In a,
I mean,
like
yeah, no, totally. And then he just like goes to work essentially at
so
his job, not paid.
so weird. So
Hmm.
weird. So so he kills Sam, leaves his body, but he takes Sam's phone and his wallet. He goes on to perform in the show, and then once the show is over, he starts texting a second victim, a
What?
woman named Julie Kobayashi. So Julie was friends with Sam, and she was Sam's tutor. He was attending a community college called Orange Coast Community College, and by all accounts, they had like a brother or sister type of relationship. It was in theory platonic. Daniel knew all of this except maybe the brother sister part because he was like texting some weird sexual stuff to Julie that was like a little bit unusual. Anyways, Julie
Oh,
was at
from
dinner
Daniel's phone.
from Sam's phone.
Sam's phone. Yes. Okay.
So Julie was at dinner with her brother when her phone starts blowing up from text messages from Sam saying things like, "I need you. I'm in a bad way. I'm having trouble with my family. I don't want to be alone." He was trying to like do like a I'm having a PTSD kind of a breakdown moment
Uh-huh.
to Julie, knowing that she would care enough to leave and take care of him. So Julie leaves dinner and heads over to Sam's apartment. When she gets there, Daniel's outside and he's basically acting as though he's a concerned friend. He was also there to take care of Sam, said he had an extra key, was going to let her in. Once they go inside, he also shoots her in the head, killing her.
What? Why?
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
He then proceeds to kind of dress up the scene as like a sexual thing, like an assault
Oh.
type of situation.
Uh-huh.
The next day, he goes up to the theater attic and he starts dismembering Sam's body. He took
Ew.
the head, arms, and legs and disposed of them in a nature preserve, but left the torso hidden in the attic. Apparently, when he was doing this, he said that he started laughing because he was looking down at what he was doing and was like, I can't even believe what I'm doing. He was so,
Ugh.
like, he was having like a disassociative experience, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So days later, a man named Steve Herr, which is Sam's father, calls the police and frantically tells them that he found a dead woman in his son's apartment. Steve lived relatively close to Sam, and they were close enough as a family that not hearing from him for a while was enough to concern him. So Steve just went over there and let himself in, and he found Julie's body. I listened to the police recording of this, and man, this guy sounds really freaked out.
That is a good reaction.
But I was thinking to myself, I was like, if I mean, wouldn't you want to try and find your kid first before you call the police or call on I don't know.
No, I would call the police because I would assume that they were also in trouble,
Right,
you
right. That's
know?
fair. That's fair.
And then like even if well, this is where I'm going with it. Like even if the answer was that my child had killed this woman, I would still want to call the police because I wouldn't help my child bury that body, but I want my child to be caught so they don't harm themselves because maybe something happened, a lot of things.
Right.
I would call the
Well,
police.
you're a good mother. Um, so at first, police show up and they're like, okay, well, obviously we know what happened. Sam killed Julie and went on the run. That's it. Um, this actually wasn't a crazy theory because Sam was actually arrested and charged 8 years prior after he and a group of men lured someone to a park and beat them to death.
Oh, what?
Yeah, he got charged, but he got acquitted. And
What?
other men in that group did not get acquitted. What I basically understood was that he like was like running with some gangs. I mean, I can only assume it was like
The pre or post military?
pre.
They let they let him in? Just like I was pro Sam until this thing. They let him in the military after he had been accused of beating someone to death,
Well,
and other people.
he was acquitted though.
Yeah, but like
So that's not
he was
really
there, close enough
well.
for me.
Yeah, if you're acquitted, I mean, there's nothing on your record. Like you got charged and you went to trial and nothing happened.
I
So
don't have the desperation of a military recruiter in me.
yeah, you're not cut off of that role.
Yeah.
So police looked at Sam's history and was like, this is, and also, maybe he's a veteran with PTSD, having issues, that's kind of how they
Yeah,
looked at it.
that's what I was thinking first.
So they got to working on trying to track him down, and the only real clue they had was that his debit card was used to withdraw money at an ATM and a local pizza parlor. So police pulled the footage of the ATM and realized that it wasn't Sam withdrawing the money, but some random kid who was later identified as Wesley Freelick, who was, I think, 16 or 17 at this time. So,
So, question for you.
yep.
Don't we know by now that ATMs have cameras? That's all.
Um, I'm gonna talk about our perpetrator and about how little he understood about.
I also don't know who this person is, so tell me who this person is.
Yeah. So police find Wesley, this kid, and they're like, why do you have this guy's debit card and why are you withdrawing money out of his account? And he goes, oh, I have a mentor from when I was in theater class. His name's Daniel. And
Oh.
Daniel approached me with this ATM and he said that he's working for a bail bondsman and this person whose debit card I'm using skipped town without paying him and he wants me to get money out for him and he just did
Mm.
it. So police call Daniel and say, we need you to come in and we need to talk to you about what's going on here. And Daniel said, no, I'm going to my bachelor party tonight. I can't talk. So it was like, fuck this guy. So they go to the bachelor party and arrest him at his bachelor party. And this is 2 days before he's supposed to get married. And
You
they bring
think
him
they
to
thought for a
reception.
second that it was like a policeman stripper?
Yes, I really, really hope because theater people are a unique breed and they probably think that everything could break out in dance
Oh my
somehow.
God, I hope that there was like a 30 seconds where everybody was like, woo. And then
It's like why do we all invite like the 300 pound, you know, retired male stripper here?
not gonna yuck
Um
anyone's yum. You do you. That's funny. Funny, not funny, but funny, you know.
so he goes in for questioning and he tells police that he withdrew the money as part of an insurance scheme he and Sam devised. Basically, the idea was that Sam was gonna sorry, Daniel was gonna run up these like fake charges by doing cash withdrawals on Sam's account. Then Sam would claim it to whatever the credit card company, and then basically they would have double money. Essentially, is what he was arguing he was going to do. So he goes with that story at first. Then this drags on for hours and hours and hours. Eventually, and that's how they wear you down. Like that's why you should never talk to the police. Like, you should always call an attorney because
Yeah,
eventually they'll
always.
wear you down and telling you something.
You know that again, you are my lawyer, so just feel
Yes,
free to
yes. Always
I'll be
call
calling
me
you.
when you're getting arrested.
I
So
will.
eventually he spins this into Sam also says something about having to kill Julie. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. He's gonna go on the run and maybe kill Julie, and then maybe we're gonna do this insurance thing. As the interrogation dragged on, he would change his story and put himself in the apartment after Sam went on the run and also after Julie had been killed. And he mentions that she'd been shot in the head twice. He was like, I walked in, I saw Julie, she was shot in the head twice. And that's when police were like, that's weird. Because,
How would you know that?
yeah, how would you know that? Because, I mean, unless you shave her head like a coroner would do
Right.
and then trace bullets, like you don't actually, you would never know by looking at a body when it's shot in the head. So eventually they're like, okay, there's something going on with this guy. Let's bring in his fiance. Maybe she'll say something or he'll say something to her or she'll get him to confess or something. So they bring Rachel in, and police noticed that when Daniel described why he was there and why he was being held, Rachel seemed like totally unaffected by it. She was just like, what? Like her demeanor was just like, and remember, they were supposed to get married in 2 days. Like, there was something really suspicious going on. And every account that I heard about what happened during this interrogation was like, she just seemed really chill, like super
Hmm.
mellow about this whole thing,
Suspiciously chill.
suspiciously chill.
Mhm.
So Daniel that night ends up being taken into a holding cell. The next morning, he calls Rachel, and Rachel tells him that her brother had brought a backpack that he said that Daniel gave him to get rid of the day before. Daniel told her not to tell the police about the backpack. And that's when Rachel said that there was no way she was going to hide evidence from the police. That's also when she let Daniel know that, by the way, this is all being recorded.
So
So,
she was always working with the police.
no, that if you call someone from jail, it is always recorded.
My God, he's so stupid.
And so when you asked earlier about the ATM, no, he probably didn't know that it was on camera.
Ugh,
But this is
idiot.
also something that people talk about when they're like, no, it feels like Rachel's putting on an act saying, oh, I'm such an above board citizen. And she also just said that she knows she's being recorded. So I don't know. A little sus.
Yeah, weird.
So it was this point that Daniel decides, you know what, I'm pretty much caught, so I'm gonna come clean. I'm gonna confess and tell the police what I did. He does that, and it was about 5 days from when Sam's murder happened to him being arrested and charged with the murders. Daniel's case would drag on for about 6 years, and in the interim, police arrested his fiance as well, charging her as accessory after the fact. Daniel had pled not guilty, which is like amazing. He pled not guilty and blamed his fiance for the murders. One piece of evidence, like in addition to all this other suspicious stuff about the fiance, one thing is that when Daniel was first questioned by the police, he said that he saw Sam leave that night with a man wearing like a black hat.
Hmm.
When Rachel was separately questioned, she also said that he left with someone with a black hat, or yeah, Sam left with someone with a black hat, and that was the last time she saw. Like that's part of the reason why she was charged with this accessory after the fact was like she knew something was going on. Like
Yeah,
they were corroborating stories at some
yeah.
point. And so it would take until 2016 for Daniel to eventually be sentenced to death. And in 2018, Rachel was sentenced to just shy of 3 years for her role. She actually got released very, very quickly after. She got released about a year after, so she only did that much time. She was released in 2019. So that's basically where it stands. It's interesting because it seems like the dad Steve Her was the one who kind of helped piece all this together because the cops were really quick to say, yeah, Sam did it. Girl's dead. They
Right.
had some
He's just missing.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention this, but it was um it was the dad, Steve, who had tried to figure out what was going on. He actually talked to Daniel at one point in the middle of all this investigation. He had his cell phone number after talking to him, and he was the one after police let him know that that pizza parlor had been where that ATM showed up. That the area code was a Long Beach area code, and the only number of Sam's friends that was in that area code was this guy Daniel. And so
Nice.
he
Good
was kind of
job.
like trying, and he's still kind of at it. Like he's very adamant that Rachel should spend the rest of her life in jail. He's positive that she had something to do with it. There's an incredible Dr. Phil episode where he brings in Rachel, the fiance, and
Whoa.
the dad, and they're like across from each other. And I was like, how did you, how much did you have to pay these guys to do this? Like,
Yeah.
pay her. But yeah, he just sat there and told her to her face, like, you absolutely know what happened. You were absolutely a part of this, and you should spend the rest of your life in jail. But
Wow.
that's who knows. She still might. She still might because she never got sentenced. She didn't get charged or sentenced for murder. She got charged and sentenced for accessory after the fact, so it's still possible.
Wow. What happened to Daniel? Is he still in jail?
Yeah. So Daniel's
Oh,
in jail. He is part of some this weird program that I guess like recently started in California where they allow death row inmates to work and do things. And so he's
that might be what my sheriff is all worked up about.
oh yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
So yeah, so he is providing like hospice care and is like a tutor or something. I don't know what that means, if that means that he's going into like actual old people's homes, which I doubt they would ever allow that to happen, or if he's just
It's
doing that
weird.
for other people in prison. But yeah, they just started this program. I forgot the name of it, but it's specifically for death row inmates.
Huh.
Yeah. And there were some talks that Gavin Newsom is or was thinking about a moratorium on the death penalty in California. Do you
Hmm.
know this? Have you heard this?
I don't know. I know it goes back and forth all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. There's a chance he never gets executed, but whatever. He's where he deserves. Like, can you
I
imagine
bet
like
he's
the
pissed he has to have a job now.
dude? Can you imagine the selfishness of like killing two people just to have a wedding? Like
No. Oh my God, that's so
how
gross.
spoil like that is. And what were you gonna do after that? What were you gonna do when you got home from the honeymoon? It's like, well, she's pregnant. We gotta get a house. We need to level up. I guess I gotta go
Gotta
kill three
kill
more
kill
people.
someone else. Yeah.
It's like
Ugh,
what a horrible plan.
what horrible people.
But then, but you should watch some of the interviews of this guy. Like when you hear him talking, like he's just like he's got to be nuts because he's like so happy. Like he's got to be out of his mind.
Well, I think also then maybe it's like a little bit like he didn't really want to be a part of society, you know?
I thought about that too. I thought like maybe he's where he should be because he never wanted to work, but he didn't want to be homeless, and like now he
Yeah,
has a home and no expectation. He
exactly.
also sounds like he comes from a shitty family, anyways, because his brother was also charged for accessory after the fact because he actually took the bloody instruments that he used to dismember Sam's body, and that was the backpack that he gave to Rachel that he was supposed to dispose of. And he's been apparently in and out of jail ever since. Like I don't know. There's bad
Wait,
people.
the backpack had body parts in it?
No, no, it had the tools he used to dismember the body.
Oh,
Yeah. Which also made me wonder, like, what was he gonna do with the torso? His whole point was,
right. It was still in the attic,
yeah,
right?
his whole point was like, I had to do it this way because I couldn't just come downstairs with a whole body. I was like, what are we gonna do with the torso? And like, how much blood was just dripping from the attic on top of the stage? Like,
And how long would that take to smell that?
I mean, he got arrested so quick. He got arrested
Yeah.
in 5 days. Like, I don't think
These
that's enough
guys.
time.
Yeah. It's like literally it took you like 30 seconds to ruin your life or make your life better if you really wanted to just live in.
I feel even worse for Julie and her family because like she literally had nothing to do with any of this. She
She
didn't
didn't
even
even know this guy.
yeah, she didn't know like you just like awful.
So,
Just so he can have a honeymoon. Like in a wedding. It's like
so dumb.
absolutely insane. Like yeah. I mean, I don't know. People do that for less, right? Like you always hear about someone killing a gas station or 7-Eleven attendant for like
Yeah, for like
20
$7 or
bucks.
something.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that was the other thing was he could only withdraw $400 at a time. Hold on. Or sorry, $400 a day. So it means to have gotten the money would have taken him half a year of daily withdrawals.
Doing the least suspicious thing ever, daily withdrawing your maximum.
It's such a stupid idea. But
Uh,
anyways, that's our guy.
it's
That's our guy
wild.
for today. Yeah.
What a
So
dope.
yeah, he's with there with it's that San Quentin death row is kind of like a who's who. He's there with like Scott Peterson, I think, still. Unless Scott
Is he
Peterson got
really?
off. He might have
I
gotten
feel
off.
like he's his. I feel bad that I just pulled the like I think latest mugshot picture because he definitely looks better in that picture than in other pictures of him, and he does kind of look like Scott Peterson. Maybe they're friends. Maybe he's like Scott Peterson's the cool guy here,
He's
you know?
he's the homecoming king on man.
He's like, hey, you guys want to learn how to play golf?
What a
You
gaggle
know?
of absolute losers. Like, can you imagine? I was watching there's a show on I think it's Peacock. It's called Jail. It's just
Uh-huh.
the name is Jail. They have ones for Las Vegas, Texas, Louisiana, all over, right? Each season is like one of those. And I was watching out and it just occurred to me, I was like, oh, this is just like timeout for completely maldeveloped adult brains because that's what they
Yeah.
do. They act up and they put them in timeout. Like they literally strap them to chairs and then aim the chairs at the wall. And it's like, are you calm now? It's like fuck you. It's like okay, well I'll come back in an hour. It's like literally
Wow.
it's like four kids. And can you imagine the death was like the worst of that?
What was the first show you watched? It was also called something like Jail?
Lock up.
Locked Up. Okay. I'll
Lockup's
watch it
great.
one of
Lockup's
these.
amazing. That's one of my
Yeah,
favorite shows. But I mean, at this point, I've watched all of them like 15 times, so I don't watch it anymore. But it's fantastic. So
I'll watch it.
oh, another one. Okay, fine. Another one is I'm obsessed with Love After Lockup. That is Taylor. It is so good. It is so good.
I think I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, start watching it, and you will be completely hooked because it's like 90 Day Fiance, except it's so much worse. It's so much more doomed to fail than even 90
Yeah.
Day Fiance.
Is it people who met like who like fell in love with someone who is in jail?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Who
there'll
like
be like a guy
write
on there
letters.
where he's like, yeah, my baby's getting out. I've sent her $90,000 in the past 5 years while she's in there, and then she gets out, and they're like, we're gonna get married the night she gets out. There's one guy literally they got married the night she gets out, or the second night she gets out, and that night she ends up going on a meth binge and stealing his car and getting arrested the next day. Like
Oh.
it's like
I
come
feel
on.
sad, and that also kind of makes me happy that men do that too, and it's not just women writing to comics.
I
Like,
mean the women get took quite a
oh,
bit.
I bet.
Lot of babies that whatever, I'm not going there. Anyways, that's my story.
Cool.
Yeah,
That was terrible. I feel bad for half the people in the story and not for the other half.
there you go.
Yeah,
Do we
total life.
have any listener
Oh,
mail?
yes, I did mean to look this up. Something from, Nadine found the podcast that you were talking about. Um, it is there is a three-part series from Freakonomics about the reparations of antiques. That's what you're talking about. And trying to like return antiques to their native lands.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. It was
Yeah,
Freakonomics. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so she shared that one. If anybody wants to see that, it's Freakonomics episode 541, the case of the $4 million gold coffin.
You can't hear the dogs.
Not at all, not even a little bit.
Wow, this mic is incredible.
There you go.
This mic is
You
absolutely
ask, we answer.
they are
Proud of
lighting up
people.
that room over there. No, Nadine, thanks for finding that. That was a really, really good podcast. It was really interesting because like different countries who hold these possessions like have kind of developed different methodologies of
Mm-hmm.
determining, and almost all of it boils down to like we still want the cultural value of it is significant enough to everybody to where if you allow us, we want to keep presenting this stuff all over the place. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. I think it should be that way. I mean, yes, have the original people own it, but grant that license for it to be seen by others, ideally.
That's fair. Just like it shouldn't be like you shouldn't send it back to where it came from and then it goes into like some dude's palace. Like it should still be available.
Yeah, I was just I'm like going down some weird rabbit holes right now, and like there's so much Titanic stuff out there where like
Ooh.
somebody rich just bought a bunch of like really great stuff and not great, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's like, wait, so like the grand piano on the Titanic is now in some guys. Well, not it's probably not that, but like it's
Probably
just
not, but I
stuff
know what
like
you're
that,
saying. Yeah.
that like has like tremendous cultural value and historical value that people should be
Hmm.
exposed to and be able to see. That just like sits somewhere in some guy's vaults, and it's like
Yeah.
cool.
I think that King Tut was in LA at one point. I know that my parents saw the King Tut's like death mask and the sarcophagus and everything in Chicago in like the 70s. And I'm actually reading um from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweller, which is one of my favorite kids' books. And it's in the 60s in New York City at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And they talk about how King Tut was on tour and like went around America. And so did the Mona Lisa. Because remember the Mona Lisa was in the Met
Yeah,
when the it like got wet and the
yeah.
Kennedys were there. It could have potentially got wet. So yeah, I think that stuff is cool. It'd be fun to like go see those things. Even you get to see them for like half a second. Like at least you get to see them in person.
So that's how that's funded. They talk about that on Freakonomics that the Egyptian it's like a touring museum concept,
Hmm.
and it is meant to fund the lease for to Egypt for taking all this material and being able to go around the place. The other thing that they mentioned was that a lot of these countries or these like cultures don't have ways of keeping this stuff actually like 100% secure. And so that they
Mm-hmm.
also lease it out because they're like, you be responsible for this. Like, we don't want this to come and like just sit here.
That's totally fair. I heard about a painting that um what is it called? The like a painting in Chicago that like they got to Chicago. Oh yeah. And so there's a Seurat painting that it's like pointillist, so it's like little